Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Whisper Zone. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious. Where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. Story 1. The screams echoed through my radio for exactly 8 seconds before they cut off. Just like that, 4 of my fellow rangers disappeared into the darkness of Mammoth Cave. That was yesterday. Now I'm standing at the same entrance where they vanished, clutching my father's old mining lamp like it's the only friend I have left in the world. My name is Diana Foster. I'm a park ranger at Mammoth Cave National Park, and in my 15 years of cave rescue work, I've never lost a team. Until now. It all started 5 days ago when the ground wouldn't stop shaking. Not big earthquakes, just little tremors that made the coffee ripple in our mugs at the ranger station. Weird for Kentucky, where the ground usually behaves itself. But that wasn't the strangest part. The shaking revealed something. A new cave opening, one that wasn't on any of our maps. I should have known something was wrong when we found the markings. They were everywhere around the entrance. Old symbols carved into the rock. I've got a PhD in geology, but these weren't like anything I'd studied before. They looked almost like warnings, stick figures running from something with long arms, and too many joints. But we're scientists, not superstitious cave people. We had to investigate. The first team went in on Tuesday morning. Standard procedure. 4 experienced rangers, all the right gear, perfect radio connection. They were supposed to do a quick 2-hour survey of the first tunnel system. Simple stuff. We'd done it 1,000 times before. I was manning the radio when it happened. First came the static, which wasn't too weird. Cave walls can mess with signals, but then I heard breathing, fast and panicked. Footsteps echoing on rock, and Thompson, our lead explorer, whispering something that made my blood run cold. It's in the walls. Oh God, it's moving through the solid rock. That's when the screaming started. 8 seconds of pure terror, then nothing but static. I spent the rest of that day organizing search parties, calling in cave rescue specialists, and trying to convince myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe a cave-in, maybe faulty equipment, maybe anything except what those ancient warnings seem to be telling us. But now, as I stand here with my rescue team gearing up behind me, I can't shake this feeling. The cave mouth looks different in my helmet light, darker somehow, like it's swallowing the beam. And those symbols, I swear they're clearer today, almost glowing. The stick figures don't look like they're running anymore. They look like they're being dragged down. My father's mining lamp feels warm in my hand. He used it for 30 years in caves just like this one, and it never failed him. Trust your gut, Diana, he always said. The rocks will tell you when. Something's wrong. Right now, everything in my gut is screaming at me to turn around and seal this entrance forever. But there are 4 people down there. 4 friends who need help, and I'm the best chance they've got. The ground trembles again as I click on my father's lamp. My team checks their gear one last time. Ropes, harnesses, backup lights, radios. No one talks much. They've all seen the symbols. They've all heard the recording of those screams. All right, people, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. Let's bring them home. If I had known what was waiting for us in the deep dark, I might have listened to my gut. I might have run, but I didn't know. None of us did, and now it's too late to turn back. The first thing you learn about caves is that they're never truly silent. There's always water dripping somewhere, wind whistling through cracks or tiny rocks settling. But this cave was different. This cave was dead quiet. Our footsteps echoed as we made our way deeper. 6 of us total. Me, 2 other rescue specialists, named Mike and Sarah, a medical officer named Dr. Chen, and 2 local cave experts, Tom and Rachel. We'd worked together before, but never in a cave that felt so wrong. Temperatures dropping fast, Sarah whispered, checking her thermometer. 10 degrees cooler than it should be at this depth. I nodded, marking our path on the cave wall with bright orange spray paint. In caves, you always leave a trail. Always. Stay close, I said. Radio check every 5 minutes. The tunnel twisted down like a giant corkscrew, getting narrower as we descended. Our lights caught glimpses of strange rock formations, not the usual stalactites and stalagmites, but shapes that looked almost carved, like someone, or something, had been decorating the walls. That's when we found the paintings. Diana? Mike called out, his voice shaky. You need to see this. I walked over to where he was standing and my light fell on the cave wall. My heart nearly stopped. The paintings were huge, maybe 15 feet high, and they seemed to tell a story. They showed people, dozens of them, running from something in the darkness. The thing chasing them was drawn in white paint that seemed to glow in our lights. It had long, twisted limbs and no eyes, just a blank face that seemed to stare right at us. Look at the date marks, Dr. Chen said, pointing to some scratches next to the paintings. These are old, really old, like thousands of years old. A cold breeze brushed past us, making our lights flicker. Dad's old mining lamp stayed steady, though, its warm glow somehow comforting. We should keep moving, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. The missing team might be just ahead. That's when it happened. Tom, who was bringing up the rear, suddenly stopped walking. His face went white as paper. Do you guys hear that? He whispered. We all went still, listening. At first there was nothing. Then, Mommy, a child's voice echoed through the cave. Mommy, where are you? Tom's eyes went wide. That's my daughter's voice. But that's impossible. She died 5 years ago in a car crash. Tom, there's no one there, Rachel said gently. It's just the cave playing tricks. Mommy, help me, the voice screamed, seeming to come from everywhere at once. Tom bolted down a side tunnel before any of us could stop him, his light bobbing crazily in the darkness. Emily, baby, I'm coming. Tom, wait, I shouted, but he was already gone. We chased after him, our lights dancing across the wet cave walls. The screaming got louder, but now it didn't sound like a little girl anymore. It sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. We found Tom 5 minutes later, curled up in a ball, shaking. His eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing us. He just kept whispering, she's gone, she's gone, she's gone. Dr. Chen gave him a sedative, but it didn't help much. We had to radio for an emergency evacuation. As they carried him out, I noticed something strange on the cave wall next to where we found him. It looked like a handprint, but it was too big, with extra fingers, and the rock around it was different. Softer somehow, like it had been melted. We need to go back, Rachel said, her voice trembling. Whatever's down here, it's not natural. Part of me wanted to agree with her. But then I thought about the 4 missing rangers, probably lost and scared in the darkness. And I remembered what my dad always said. Fear is natural in caves, Diana. But courage is choosing to help others even when you're scared. We press on, I said firmly. But we stick together. No matter what we hear, no matter what we see, we stay together. They nodded, but I could see the fear in their eyes. The cave seemed to get darker around us, even with our lights at full power. Only my father's lamp kept burning steady, its old-fashioned flame cutting through the shadows. None of us said what we were all thinking, that the paintings on the wall weren't just ancient art. They were a warning. And whatever those people had been running from thousands of years ago, it was still down here, and it was waiting for us. It started with the whispering. We'd been underground for 6 hours when our radios picked it up, soft voices speaking, in words we couldn't quite understand. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, getting louder whenever we shined our lights on the rock. It's just air moving through the cave, I said, but even I didn't believe it anymore. Not after what happened to Tom. Dr. Chen walked closer to the wall, frowning. These rocks, they're warm. Caves don't work like that. The deeper you go, the colder it should be. Suddenly, Sarah grabbed my arm. Diana, look! Our lights caught. Something moving ahead just for a second. It looked like a person, but wrong, too tall. Too many joints in its arms. disappeared around a corner before we could get a better look. "That has to be one of the missing rangers," Rachel said, but her voice shook. We all knew that whatever we'd seen wasn't human. We followed the tunnel down, marking our path carefully. The cave opened into a huge chamber, bigger than a football field. Our lights couldn't reach the ceiling, but they did show us something else: buildings. Ancient stone buildings carved right into the cave walls. "It's a city," Mike whispered. "No, an underground city." We found tools scattered everywhere, pottery pieces and more of those strange symbols. But everything was covered in deep scratch marks, like something with huge claws had torn through the place. That's when we heard Mike scream. He was standing in front of a wall, staring at something. When we reached him, I saw why. The wall wasn't rock anymore. It was like a window showing a scene from Mike's life. His worst memory, the day his brother drowned while cave diving. But the scene was wrong. In the window, something pale and eyeless was in the water with his brother, pulling him down. "It's not real," I shouted, grabbing Mike's shoulders. "Look at me, it's not real!" The vision disappeared, but Mike wasn't the same after that. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. We tried to radio for help, but all we got was static and those whispers, getting louder now. They almost sounded like they were laughing. Sarah was the next to go. 1 minute she was beside me. The next she was running down a side tunnel screaming about spiders that weren't there. We found her, what was left of her, at the bottom of a deep pit. It looked like she'd jumped. Dr. Chen broke down after that. He just sat on the ground, rocking back and forth, talking about his old patients, people he couldn't save. His eyes went foggy, like he was seeing things we couldn't. Then he just stopped. His heart gave out from pure fear. "It's feeding on us," Rachel said, her voice barely a whisper. "On our memories, our fears." She was right. I could feel it now. Something brushing against my mind, trying to dig up my worst moments. The day my mom left. The cave collapse that killed my first rescue partner. The night Dad died, his mining lamp still burning bright beside him. The lamp. I looked down at it in my hand, still glowing steady and strong. The creature's visions didn't seem as strong when I held it close. A strange sound echoed through the chamber, like stone grinding against stone. We turned and saw it properly for the first time. It was sliding through the solid rock wall like it was water. Its pale skin was almost see-through, showing dark shapes moving inside. Its face had no eyes, but somehow I knew it was looking right at us. Its long fingers, too many fingers, reached out toward us. But worst of all was its mind touching ours. It was curious, hungry. It had been down here so long, feeding on the fears of anyone who wandered into its cave. And now, it had us. Mike screamed again as another vision hit him. This time he ran straight at the creature, firing his flare gun. The flare went right through it, but it lit up the chamber enough for us to see dozens more creatures moving in. The shadows. We'd found the missing rangers, or what was left of them. They were huddled in a corner, still breathing, but their eyes were empty. Whatever made them who they were, their memories, their minds, was just gone. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing Rachel's arm. But as we turned to escape, the ground started shaking. Rocks fell from the ceiling, blocking our way out. We were trapped. And the creature, it was still smiling, that eyeless smile. It had been waiting. A very long time for a meal like us. Hours passed in the dark, or maybe it was days. Time felt wrong down here. We huddled in a corner of the ancient city, Rachel, Mike, and me, keeping my father's lamp burning between us. The creatures stayed just at the edge of our light, waiting. Mike wasn't doing well. His eyes kept going distant, and he'd mumble about his brother. Every time he did, one of the creatures would move closer, like it could smell his fear. "They're feeding again," Rachel whispered, pointing at the missing rangers. The creatures were touching their heads with those long, pale fingers. With each touch, the rangers' faces got more blank, more empty. I clutched Dad's lamp tighter. "The light keeps them back. They don't like it." "Not the electric lights," Rachel said. Her voice was shaking, but her mind was still sharp. Those don't bother them. It's your lamp, the real fire. Look." She was right. When I moved the lamp, the creatures shifted away from its warm glow, but they were getting braver, creeping closer each time. Then Mike broke. I can't let them take my memories of him," he sobbed. "My brother, he's all I have left." Before we could stop him, Mike jumped up and ran straight at the nearest creature. He was trying to punch it, kick it, anything, but his hands went right through its body like it was made of fog. The creature didn't even move. It just reached out and touched Mike's forehead with one long finger. Mike froze. His eyes went wide. Then he started screaming, not in fear, but like he was in pain. I saw memories leaking out of him like bright smoke flowing into the creature's transparent skin. "Make it stop," Mike begged. "Please, I can't remember his face anymore." Rachel tried to run to him, but I held her back. We watched, helplessly, as Mike's eyes got duller and duller. When the creature finally let him go, he slumped to the ground. He was still breathing, but his eyes were empty, just like the other rangers. "They're not just feeding on fear," I said, the horrible truth hitting me. "They're eating memories, everything that makes us, us." Rachel grabbed my arm. "Diana, your lamp, the fire. Fire needs oxygen, right?" I nodded slowly, starting to understand. "And down this deep, there shouldn't be enough oxygen for a flame. This strong, exactly. These creatures, they're changing the cave somehow, making it different. Like those warm rocks and the weird tunnels. But your lamp shows how things should be. Real fire. Real light." She never got to finish. One of the creatures slid through the wall behind her, quick as a snake. Its fingers touched her temple before she could scream. I watched, helpless, as Rachel's memories poured out of her. Her first cave expedition, her wedding day, the birth of her son. The creature drank them all, growing more solid with each one. When it was done, Rachel fell next to Mike, her eyes just as empty. I was alone now, surrounded by the creatures. They were closing in, their eyeless faces all turned toward me. Toward the lamp. My hands shook as I held it up. The flame flickered, and I thought about Dad, about how he taught me to clean this lamp, to keep it burning bright no matter what. It was his most precious possession, and now it was mine. That's when I noticed something odd. When I thought about Dad, about how much I loved him, the creatures pulled back a little. Not just from the lamp's fire, but from the memory itself. They fed on fear, on pain, on our darkest memories. But maybe there was something they couldn't stomach. I had an idea. A terrible, dangerous idea. But it was all I had left. I looked at my father's lamp one last time, remembering how he'd smiled when he gave it to me. Then I turned toward the creatures and took a deep breath. "You want my memories?" I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Come and get them, but I get to choose which ones you see first." The creatures moved closer, their long fingers reaching for my head. But this time, I didn't run. This time, I was ready. And I had one last lesson to teach them about human memories. The first memory I showed them was Dad teaching me to swim. I was 5, scared of the water, but his strong hands held me up. "I've got you, sweetheart," he'd said. "You're safe with me." The creatures jerked back like they'd been burned. Love. Pure, simple love. It hurt them more than any light, but they were hungry. They came at me again, their long fingers reaching. This time, they forced their way into my mind. They wanted my fears, my pain. I gave them Christmas morning instead. Mom and Dad laughing as I opened presents, the warmth of family, of belonging. The creatures hissed, their transparent skin rippling. "Not what you wanted?" I gasped, struggling to stay standing. "Too bad. Here's more. My first successful cave rescue. The joy of saving lives. My team celebrating together. The pride in Dad's eyes when I got my ranger badge. Each happy memory made the creatures weaker. Their bodies were becoming less solid, more like smoke. But there were so many of them, and fighting them was making my head spin. One of them got through my defense. Suddenly I was reliving Mom leaving us, the slam of the door, Dad crying when he thought I couldn't hear. The creature drank my pain greedily, growing stronger. "No," I whispered, gripping Dad's lamp tighter. "You don't get to take that. Even the sad memories. They're mine." I forced myself to remember what came after Mom left, how Dad and I grew closer, how we healed together. The creature trying to feed on my pain reared back, choking. That's when I saw it. There was a tunnel behind them, sloping down. It felt different from the others, older somehow. And at the bottom, through the darkness, I could see a faint glow. Like the rocks themselves were alive. Their nest, their home, where they'd been hiding for thousands of years. I had 3 flares left in my belt. Looking at the rocky ceiling above that tunnel, a plan formed in my mind. A dangerous, terrible plan. "Want to know my worst memory?" I called out to them. Come closer, I'll show you." They couldn't resist. They all moved toward me at once, their eyeless faces hungry, waiting for my fear, my pain. I took Dad's lamp in my hand one last time. "I'm sorry," I whispered to it. Then I threw it as hard as I could into the nest tunnel. The creatures screeched, following the light, just like I hoped they would. I grabbed my flare gun and fired. Not at them, at the ceiling where I'd seen the cracks. 1 flare, 2 flares, 3. The explosions were deafening. Rocks started falling everywhere. The creatures screamed, a sound like breaking glass. They tried to escape through the walls, but something was wrong. The flares had changed the rocks somehow, made them solid again. The ceiling came down in a roar of dust and stone. I ran to where Mike and Rachel lay and covered them with my body, as best I could. When the dust cleared, the tunnel to the nest was gone, sealed under tons of rock. I could hear the creatures shrieking on the other side, but their cries were getting fainter, weaker, without their nest, without their connection. To the cave itself, they were dying. I looked around. The other rangers were starting to stir. The emptiness was fading from their eyes. Without the creatures feeding on them, their memories were coming back. But not all of them. I tried to remember what Dad looked like when I was little, what his voice sounded like when he read me stories, but those memories were gone, eaten by the creatures. 5 years of my life with him, just blank spaces now. That's when I saw something in the rubble. A small light, Dad's lamp. Somehow it had been thrown clear of the cave-in. The glass was cracked, but the flame still burned. I picked it up carefully, holding it close. I couldn't remember. Dad teaching me how to fill it with oil, or how to trim the wick. Those memories were gone forever, but I remembered that he gave it to me. I remembered that he loved me, and maybe that was enough. "Time to go home," I said to my recovering team. They stood shakily, leaning on each other. No one spoke. No one needed to. As we made our way back up through the tunnels, following our marked path, I could still hear faint sounds from deep below, growing weaker, fading away, but not gone, never completely gone. Some things I learned you can't bury deep enough. Some memories, once lost, never come back. And some flames, no matter how small, keep burning forever. They sealed the cave entrance with concrete a week later, 20 feet thick with warning signs in every language they could think of. But sometimes when I walk past it at night, I can still hear things, whispers, movement, like something scratching at the other side of a door. The others are healing, slowly. Mike remembers his brother now, but the memories come back in pieces, like trying to put together a puzzle with missing parts. Rachel's son visits her in the hospital every day, helping her remember their life together, one story at a time. The official report calls it a cave-in caused by the tremors. Mass hallucination from lack of oxygen. That's what people want to believe. So that's what they believe. It's easier that way. I still work as a park ranger. Still do cave rescues when I'm needed. But I'm more careful now. I pay attention to the warnings carved in stone, to the stories the old-timers tell about places we're not meant to go. The doctors say my memories from ages 8 to 13 might come back someday, but I know they won't. Those years with Dad are just empty spaces now, a blank wall where pictures used to hang. But I have his lamp. The glass is still cracked, but I keep it clean and filled with oil, just like he taught me, even though I can't remember him teaching me. Every night, I light it and set it on my windowsill. Its flame burns steady and bright, keeping the darkness at bay. Sometimes people ask me why I keep working in caves after what happened, why I go back into the dark places when I know what might be hiding there. I tell them it's because not all darkness is bad. Sometimes people get lost in the dark, and they need someone to help them find their way back to the light. That's what Dad taught me, even if I can't remember the lesson. Last week, they detected new tremors in the park, small ones like before. The concrete seal is holding, but sometimes when I put my hand on it, I can feel something moving deep below. Searching hungry, they're still down there, those creatures. Maybe they always have been. Maybe they always will be. But now we know about them. Now we can warn others. And every night I keep my father's lamp burning. Because some memories may fade. Some fears may never go away. But love burns, brighter than any darkness. Even if you can't remember where you learned that truth, it stays with you. Like a light in the deep dark, showing the way home. The end note was later found carved into the cave wall near the sealed entrance, written in Diana Foster's handwriting. To whoever finds this place in the future, the flame keeps them back. But it's not the fire they fear, it's what the light reminds them of, that even in the darkest places, love survives. Remember that. You'll need it. Story 2. The night Jake died, the moon looked like it was bleeding. I'm Kate Reynolds, and after 15 years as a park ranger in Superior National Forest, Minnesota, I thought I'd seen everything. But what happened last winter changed everything. I knew about wolves, about nature, and about what's really out there in the dark. It started with the moon turning a deep, ugly red, like someone had spilled wine across the sky. I was doing my usual evening rounds, checking on the wolf packs we'd been tracking. Jake, my research partner, was supposed to meet me at our usual spot, a small clearing about 2 miles from the ranger station. He never showed up. The wolves had been acting strange for weeks. As a wildlife biologist specializing in wolf behavior, I knew something was wrong. Packs were abandoning their territories, moving in patterns that made no sense. And the howls, they sounded different, almost like words. I remember sitting in my tiny office that morning, staring at the photos on my wall. Pictures of me with various wolf packs I'd studied over the years. My PhD graduation photo, and an old image of my grandmother in her traditional Native American dress. She used to tell me stories about spirit wolves and sacred grounds, but I never really believed them. I was a scientist after all. But now, the trouble really began when those construction workers disturbed the old burial grounds near Wolf Lake. They were building a new camping area, despite the local tribe's protests. My friend John Redhawk, one of the tribal elders, had warned them. Some things should stay buried, he'd said. I should have listened to him. That first night after they broke ground, we lost contact with 3 wolf packs we'd been tracking. Their radio collars just went dead. Jake and I spent days searching for them. We found their collars in a clearing, twisted and broken like they'd been torn off by something impossibly strong. And there were tracks in the mud. Wolf tracks, but wrong somehow. Some looked almost human. I'm writing this down now because people need to know what really happened here. Why 5 good rangers died. Why we had to quarantine part of the forest. Why people still go missing during the full moon. But most importantly, I'm writing this because I can feel myself changing. Every time the moon grows full, I feel it in my bones. My teeth ache. My senses sharpen. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, my eyes reflect the light just like a wolf's. This is the story of the Blood Moon Pack. And it's a warning to anyone who thinks they understand what's really out there in the wilderness. Because trust me, you don't. Not even close. The first thing that made my skin crawl wasn't the howls or the tracks. It was watching a wolf pick up a knife. I was in my observation blind, a little wooden shelter hidden in the trees where I could watch the wolves without them seeing me. It was just before sunset. and I was taking notes on Pack 247, one of our oldest tracked groups. That's when I saw it. The black wolf, we called him Shadow, walked up to an old campsite. Instead of sniffing around for food scraps like normal, he did something impossible. He stood up, not just on his back legs for a second like wolves sometimes do, but fully upright, like a person. Then he picked up a hunting knife someone had left behind, holding it in his mouth just like you'd hold a tool. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely write in my notebook. I've spent my whole life studying wolves. They're smart, yes, but this was different. This was wrong. I radioed back to the station. "Base, this is Kate. You need to see this." But by the time Nathan Miller, another ranger, arrived, Shadow and his pack were gone. All that was left were the tracks, wolf prints that turned into something else, like the animal had been changing as it walked. Over the next few days, things got weirder. We found dead deer in the forest, but they weren't killed like normal. Wolf kills. They were arranged in perfect circles, their heads all pointing in toward the center. Some had symbols carved into them, not random cuts, but actual symbols, like some kind of writing. "Maybe it's poachers," Nathan suggested. Some kind of sick ritual thing, but I'd seen Shadow with that knife. I knew better. The pack's behavior kept changing. They started hunting differently, setting up ambushes that were way too smart for regular wolves. They'd chase hikers toward dead ends, work together to cut off escape routes. It was like they were playing with people. One morning I found wolf tracks circling my cabin, big ones. They went all the way around, stopping at each window like whatever made them had been looking in, watching me. When I followed the tracks, they led to a message scraped into the dirt, 3 long lines crossed by 2 shorter ones. The same symbol we'd found carved into those deer. I called Dr. Lisa Whitecloud, an anthropologist who specialized in local tribal history. "Those symbols," she said, her voice tense. "They're old, really old. Where exactly did you find them?" I told her about the deer, the tracks, everything. She went quiet for a long time. "Kate," she finally said, "don't go out after dark. Not until I get there. There are stories about wolves like this, but I never thought they were real." That night, the howls started. But they weren't normal howls. They sounded like words in a language I almost understood, like they were trying to talk to us, or maybe calling to us, the worst part. Sometimes late at night, I caught myself wanting to answer. I set up trail cameras all through the forest, hoping to get proof of what was happening. Most of them just showed normal wolf activity, or nothing at all. But one camera, the one nearest, the burial grounds, caught something that still gives me nightmares. It showed Shadow and his pack, 13 wolves in total, standing in a circle under the moon. As the video played, they rose up one by one onto their back legs. Their shapes started to blur and change. And in the middle of their circle was a person, Nathan Miller. He was on his knees, head thrown back, and he was changing too. I deleted that video. Not because I was scared people wouldn't believe it, but because I was scared they would. And then they'd come looking for the Blood Moon pack. Because by then, I was starting to understand something terrible. These wolves weren't just hunting people. They were recruiting. 3 people came to help me figure out what was happening with the wolves. By the end of that month, only one of us was still human. Nathan Miller was the first. He was a new ranger, fresh from training in Colorado. Tall, strong, and so excited about working with wolves that he reminded me of myself when I first started. But there was something else about him, something that made the wolves watch him differently. I can feel them in my head sometimes. He told me one evening as we tracked Shadow's pack, like they're calling to me. Is that crazy? I should have sent him away right then, but I needed help. And Nathan was the only other ranger who believed me about what was happening. Dr. Lisa Whitecloud arrived next. She wasn't what I expected. Instead of some stuffy professor, she showed up in hiking boots and old jeans, carrying a backpack full of ancient books and tribal records. "My grandmother used to tell stories about wolves that walked like men," she said as we sat in my cabin that first night. But these weren't just stories, were they, Kate? The last to join us was John Redhawk, one of the tribal elders. He was in his 70s, but moved through the forest like he was born there. The moment he saw the symbols the wolves had left, his face went pale. "They're back," was all he said. Then he started laying down protection charms around my cabin. We worked together trying to understand what was happening. Lisa studied the symbols and the burial grounds. Nathan tracked the wolves' movements. John performed ceremonies to keep us safe. And me, I watched everything fall apart. It started with the dreams. Nathan had them first. Nightmares about running with the pack, hunting under a blood-red moon. But soon they weren't just dreams. He started staying out later and later following the wolves. His eyes changed first, getting that same yellow glow that shadows had. "I understand them now," he told me one morning, his voice rough like he'd been howling. "They're not evil, Kate. They're evolving, and they want us to evolve too." A week later, we found the first body. A hiker torn apart not like a wolf kill, but like something that was learning how to be a wolf. The worst part? I recognized the boot prints around the body. They were Nathan's, slowly changing into paw prints as they led away from the scene. Lisa threw herself into her research, trying to find a way to help Nathan. She found stories about similar wolves from hundreds of years ago, spirits that could possess both animals and humans, turning them into something in between. "The burial grounds," she explained, spreading out old maps on my desk. "They're not just graves, they're prisons. Those construction workers didn't just disturb bones, they let something out, something that's been waiting a long time to wake up. But the wolves were watching us learn about them. The night Lisa figured out how to stop them, they came for her. I found her research scattered across the forest floor, pages torn and bloody. The symbols she'd been studying were carved into the trees around her body, and in the dirt there was a new message, written in what looked like claw marks. Knowledge has a price. John Redhawk didn't run. He knew what needed to be done. "The old ways still work," he told me, laying out herbs and sacred items in a circle. "But power like this demands sacrifice." He taught me the protection rituals, showed me how to make weapons that would work against spirit wolves. Silver wasn't enough. The bullets had to be blessed, marked with symbols of our own. "When the eclipse comes," he said, "they'll be at their strongest. That's when they'll try to turn everyone. We have to be ready." I wanted to tell him to leave, to save himself. But the look in his eyes told me he'd already accepted what was coming. That night, I heard Nathan's voice outside my cabin. He wasn't alone. "Join us, Kate," he called, but his voice wasn't quite human anymore. "You can feel it too, can't you? The change, the power." I could. Every night the pull got stronger. The wolf tracks around my cabin weren't just from them, watching me. They were from me. On nights when the moon was bright, I'd wake up outside, dirt under my fingernails, not remembering how I got there. Parts of me were changing, whether I wanted them to or not. John Redhawk saw it happening. "You're fighting it," he said. "Good. We'll need someone who understands both sides when the final night comes." I didn't know then that the final night would come so soon, or that understanding both sides would mean watching everyone I cared about either die or turn into something that wasn't human anymore. The eclipse was coming, and with it, a choice I never wanted to make. The first time I saw a wolf change into something else, I was doing my night patrol. I wish I could say I was brave. But the truth is, I dropped my flashlight and nearly threw up. It was Shadow, the black wolf leader. He was standing at the edge of the forest, just where my flashlight beam ended. At first I thought he was just standing on his back legs again. Then I realized he was getting taller. His front legs stretched into arms. His paws split into fingers. But his face, that was the worst part. It stayed halfway between wolf and human, with eyes that glowed yellow in my flashlight beam. He smiled at me, showing teeth that were definitely not normal wolf teeth anymore. "Kate," he said, and his voice was like gravel and howls mixed together. "We've been waiting for you to see." I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. But when I got back to my cabin and locked the door, there was already a message scratched into my window. You can't run from what you're becoming. The next day, John Redhawk helped me set up protective circles around the ranger station. They're getting stronger, he said, burning sage and drawing. Symbols in the dirt. The eclipse is making them stronger. He was right. That week, 3 hikers went missing. We found their campsite torn apart, but not like a normal wolf attack. Their supplies were stacked neatly in piles. Their maps had new marks on them, places in the forest marked with those same symbols we kept finding. Nathan was completely gone by then. Sometimes we'd see him running with the pack, more wolf than human. Sometimes he'd stand at the edge of our protective circles at night, calling out to us. "It doesn't hurt," he'd say. "The change. It feels right, like waking up from a long sleep." But I'd seen his transformation happening over the weeks. The way he'd scratched himself until he bled, trying to make the change go faster. The way he'd screamed at night when his bones were reshaping themselves. He was lying. It hurt plenty. The first real fight happened at the old fire tower. I was up there with John, setting up a protective circle, when the pack surrounded us. Not just regular wolves anymore, half-changed things that walked on 2 legs and used their hands. And leading them was Nathan. He wasn't even trying to look human anymore. His face was a mix of wolf and man, fur sprouting in patches, eyes glowing, that sick yellow color. But he could still talk. "Last chance," he growled. "Join us willingly, or we'll make you join us." John stepped forward, holding up a sacred bundle of herbs and bones. "You're not wolves," he said. "You're not spirit. You're something wrong." They attacked all at once. I fired my rifle, regular bullets, because we hadn't made the blessed ones. Yet they didn't do much except make the wolf things angry. John's protective circle held them back, but we could see it weakening as they clawed at it. I saw a shadow watching from the trees. He wasn't attacking, just watching, like this was a test. Maybe it was. We survived that night because John knew what he was doing. He threw down a powder that burst into blue flames, driving the pack back. We ran down the fire tower steps and didn't stop running until we reached the ranger station, but they'd let us escape. We both knew that. They could have kept us trapped up there until the circle failed. "They're playing with us," I said, checking the scratches on my arm where one had almost grabbed me. The cuts tingled in a way that regular cuts shouldn't. "No," John said, looking at my arm with worry in his eyes. "They're teaching us, teaching our bodies how to change." He was right. That night I woke up to find clumps of fur on my pillow. When I looked in the mirror, my eyes had started to get a yellow tinge to them. The pack had marked me, not with teeth or claws, but with something deeper. Something that was slowly working its way through my blood, changing me from the inside out. And the scariest part? Some nights when the moon was bright and I could feel the wolf stirring under my skin, I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it. Dr. Lisa Whitecloud called me at midnight, her voice shaking with excitement. "Kate, I found it. I know what they are. I know how to stop them." I should have known right then that she was in danger. The wolves always seem to know when we learn too much. I drove to a research cabin through the rain. Lisa had papers spread everywhere. Old tribal records, maps, and photocopies of ancient drawings showing wolf people under a red moon. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a map that showed the burial grounds. "These aren't just random graves. They're in a pattern, a giant spirit trap. The old tribes didn't just bury their dead here. They buried something else, something that could turn men into wolves and wolves into monsters." She showed me a drawing of a wolf spirit with glowing eyes. The same yellow eyes I'd been seeing in my mirror lately. They called it the Blood Alpha, Lisa explained. It could possess wolves and people, make them change. But that's not the scary part. She paused, her hands trembling as she held up an old piece of paper. "It doesn't just want to change people into wolves. It wants to change everything. When the eclipse comes, if it has enough transformed pack members," a howl cut through the night. "Close. Too close." Lisa grabbed her research and shoved it into my hands. "Take it. Get it to John. He'll know what to do with..." The window exploded inward. Shadow came through it, but he wasn't alone. Nathan was with him, and 3 other half-changed wolves I didn't recognize. "Inside!" Lisa screamed, pushing me toward her bedroom. "The circle! Get inside the protection circle!" I ran, clutching her research. Behind me, I heard Lisa chanting something, words in her native language that made the wolves howl in pain. I got inside the circle of symbols she'd drawn on her bedroom floor. The wolves couldn't cross it, but they didn't need to. They had Lisa. I heard her scream, not in fear, but in defiance. There was a flash of blue light. She'd been keeping protection charms like John had taught us. Then came the sounds I still hear in my nightmares. When it went quiet, Shadow walked to the edge of the circle. He was fully changed now, standing, upright, his black fur slick with rain and blood. "Knowledge has a price," he said in that terrible growling voice. "Your friend paid it. Will you?" I stayed in that circle until sunrise, listening to them tear apart Lisa's research cabin. They destroyed everything, except the papers I was holding. They wanted me to know, wanted me to understand what I was up against. When John found me the next morning, I was still sitting in that circle, clutching Lisa's last notes. My hair had started turning gray at the temples, not from fear, but from the change working its way through me. She found out how to stop them, I told him, my voice hoarse. But she found out something else too, something worse. John read through the papers, his face getting darker with each page. "The Blood Alpha," he said. I was afraid of this. My grandfather told stories. "What do we do?" I asked. "We finish what Lisa started," he said. "But first we bury our dead." We burned Lisa's body at sunrise, the way her people did. As the smoke rose, I swear I saw it take the shape of a running wolf before the wind scattered it. That night I dreamed of running with the pack. But this time it wasn't scary, it felt right. When I woke up, there were paw prints leading from my bed to the door. My paw prints. The change was getting stronger. I could feel it every minute now. The way my senses were getting sharper. The way my teeth ached. The way the moon seemed to pull at my bones. John saw it happening. "Fight it," he said. "We need you human for what's coming." What if I can't? He showed me the symbols from Lisa's research. These can hold them back. But to stop them for good, he pointed to a drawing of the eclipse. "We need to trap the blood. Alpha during the eclipse when it's strongest." "That's suicide," I said. "Yes." He didn't even try to pretend otherwise. "But Lisa died to get us this information. Nathan's already gone. And you're changing. Someone has to end this before the eclipse comes." I looked at my hands. In the right light, I could see fur starting to grow beneath the skin. "How long do we have?" 3 days until the eclipse. 3 days to prepare for a fight we probably wouldn't survive. 3 days to figure out how to trap something that could turn people into monsters. 3 days to decide if I wanted to fight my transformation or give in to it. And somewhere in the forest, Shadow and his pack were waiting, getting stronger, getting ready. The moon was almost full now, and when I looked at it, part of me wanted to howl. 2 days before the eclipse, Nathan came to say goodbye to what was left of his humanity. I was checking the protection symbols around the ranger station when I smelled him coming. That's how far my changes had gone. I could smell the difference between regular wolves and the changed ones. Nathan smelled like both, but also like sadness. He stayed just outside the protection circle. The fur on his body was patchy now, his face caught between human and wolf. But his eyes, they were still Nathan's eyes even though they glowed yellow in the dark. "I fought it at first," he said, his voice rough like he'd forgotten how to use it. "I thought I could control it, be both human and wolf." He laughed, but it came out like a growl. I was wrong. "It doesn't have to be this way," I told him, even though I could feel my own changes getting stronger. "We can fight it. Fight it." He held up his hands. They were more like claws now. "Look at me, Kate. Look at yourself. You're changing too. And the closer we get to the eclipse, the faster it'll happen." He was right. That morning, I'd found wolf fur growing down my spine. My teeth were sharper. And the dreams of running with the pack felt more real every night. "Shadow sent me to warn you," Nathan said. "Tomorrow night we're coming for everyone, the whole park. Every ranger, every camper. By the eclipse, we'll all be pack. Why are you telling me this? Because I remember being human. Remember being your friend. His face twisted like he was fighting something inside him. Get out, Kate. Take John and run. What's coming? It's worse than you know. Before I could answer, he dropped to all fours and ran into the forest. It was the last time I saw any trace of the human Nathan in him. That night, everything got worse. The wolves attacked 3 different ranger stations at once, not to kill, to transform. We got calls about rangers seeing glowing eyes in the dark, about people waking up covered in fur, about kids speaking in growls. John Redhawk worked non-stop, drawing protection circles and burning sage. They're getting ready, he said. The Blood Alpha needs more pack members before the eclipse. More power. What happens during the eclipse, I asked, remembering Lisa's last discovery. The barrier between spirit world and our world gets thin. If the Blood Alpha has enough transformed pack members, it can break through completely. Change everything. Everyone. I looked down at my hands. The nails were turning into claws no matter how many times I cut them. What about me? I asked. How long before I'm like Nathan? John handed me a charm on a leather string. Wear this. It won't stop the change, but it'll slow it down. Keep your mind human longer. Long enough to stop them? Long enough to try. We spent that night making weapons. Silver bullets blessed with tribal prayers. Arrows dipped in sacred herbs. Knives marked with the same symbols that were in the burial grounds. But our biggest problem was numbers. We had 5 rangers left who could still fight. The wolves. We'd counted at least 30 of them now. All half-changed, all under Shadow's control. And Shadow was just the Blood Alpha's favorite puppet. The real monster was still hiding, waiting for the eclipse, using Shadow to build its pack, to make its army. Around midnight, the howling started. But this time it was different. This time I could understand the words. They were calling to the things inside everyone that were wild, angry, scared. The parts that wanted to stop being human, stop feeling human pain. The parts that wanted to be monsters. I felt it pulling at me, stronger than ever. The charm around my neck grew hot, fighting against the change. But I could feel myself slipping. When I looked in the mirror, my eyes were fully yellow now. Wolf eyes. One more day, John said, watching me fight the change. Just hold on one more day. But we could hear the howls getting closer. Could smell more wolves joining the pack. Could feel the eclipse coming, pulling at our bones, calling to the wild things inside us. Tomorrow night, we'd make our last stand. Tomorrow night, we'd find out if we could save everyone, or if we'd end up running with the pack under a blood-red moon. One way or another, tomorrow would be the end. The day before the eclipse felt like the longest day of my life. Every minute was a fight against the wolf trying to claw its way out of my skin. We gathered in the main ranger station, me, John, and the last 4 rangers who hadn't changed or run away. Everyone looked scared, and they had good reason to be. Look, at this, I said, spreading out Lisa's research on the table. My hands were shaking, the nails already looked more like claws. The burial grounds form a circle. The old tribes used it as a trap for the Blood Alpha hundreds of years ago. We can use it again. But the construction work broke the circle, said Sarah, one of the younger rangers. Won't that make it useless? John shook his head. Not if we fix it. Not if we make a new circle. He pulled out a map marked with Lisa's symbols. We need to make a ring of blessed silver and tribal charms around the burial grounds. When the eclipse happens, it'll trap anything supernatural inside. Including us? Asked Mike, another ranger. He was looking at me, at my yellow eyes and the fur starting to show at my wrists. Including me, I said quietly. If I'm turned by then. We spent the morning making more blessed bullets, dipping them in mixtures John prepared, while saying prayers in his native language. Every bullet had to be marked with tiny symbols, the same ones from the burial grounds. Silver hurts them, John explained, but these marks, These trapped the spirit part of them, stopped them from healing. Each of us took as many bullets as we could carry, but we all knew it might not be enough. Around noon, we got reports of more people changing. A family at the campground woke up with yellow eyes. 2 hikers were seen running with the pack. The infection or curse or whatever it was spreading faster as the eclipse got closer. "How do we get close enough to make the circle?" Sarah asked. "The pack will see us coming." "We split up," I said, trying to ignore the way my teeth ached as they got sharper. 5 points around the burial grounds. Each person places their part of the circle. John will connect them with a blessing. "And what about the blood alpha?" Mike looked nervous. "We haven't even seen it yet." "It's waiting," John said, "gathering strength. It'll show itself during the eclipse when it's most powerful." "How? Will we know it?" "We'll know," I said, remembering the dreams I'd been having. Dreams of something huge and ancient, with too many eyes and teeth that could tear through souls. We spent the afternoon practicing with our weapons, trying to get used to shooting with shaking hands. The protection charms John gave us burned against our skin, fighting off the change that seemed to float in the air like a sickness. I caught my reflection in a window. My face was still human mostly, but there was something wolf-like in the way I moved now. The charm around my neck felt hot all the time, like it was burning away the wolf inside me. "What if we fail?" Sarah asked quietly while we were loading our guns. "What if it gets out and spreads beyond the forest?" "Then everything changes," John said. "The blood alpha doesn't just want a pack. It wants to wake up the wild thing sleeping inside every person. Turn the whole world into something else." As the sun started to set, we heard the howls begin. They were coming from everywhere now, surrounding the station. I could smell them. Dozens of wolves, half-changed people, all of them waiting for the eclipse. "They won't attack yet," I said, sniffing the air. "Shadows waiting. They all are." "How? Can you be sure?" Mike asked. I touched the charm around my neck. "Because part of me can hear them. They want us to see. Want us to watch when the eclipse comes and the blood alpha rises." We gathered our weapons and supplies. Each person took their piece of the silver circle we'd made, wrapped in blessed cloth. We all wore John's protection charms. "When the moon starts to go dark," John said, "that's when we move. Not before. And if we see Nathan, or any of the others who've turned?" Sarah's voice shook a little. "They're not people anymore," I said, even though it hurt to say it. "They're part of the pack now, part of the blood alpha." The sun disappeared. The moon rose, looking bigger and redder than ever. Soon it would start to go dark. Soon we'd find out if we could save everyone, or if we'd become part of the howling in the night. I touched the charm around my neck, feeling the wolf inside me prowl and scratch, wanting to get out. "Just a little longer," I whispered to myself. "Stay human just a little longer." In the forest, the howls grew louder, waiting, hungry. The eclipse was coming. The moon started to go dark at exactly 9:47 p.m. That's when everything went wrong. We'd be, split up to place our parts of the silver circle around the burial grounds. I could smell the pack watching us from the trees, but they didn't attack. Not yet. They were waiting for something. The charm around my neck burned so hot it felt like it was on fire. The wolf inside me was fighting harder than ever to get out. Every step was a battle to stay human. I reached my spot on the east side of the burial grounds. Sarah was to my right, Mike to my left. John was moving between us, connecting the silver pieces with his prayers and blessing. That's when I heard Sarah scream through the trees. I saw her backing away from something. It was Nathan, but he'd changed even more. He was huge now, towering over her on 2 legs, his fur matted with dirt and blood. "Sarah, run!" I shouted. But it was too late. Nathan moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. He grabbed her, and I saw his claws sink into her arm. She fired her gun. Once, twice, the blessed silver bullets making Nathan howl in pain. But he didn't let go. I started running toward them, but movement in the trees stopped me. The whole pack was there, watching. Dozens of glowing yellow eyes in the darkness. And walking through them came Shadow. He looked different too. bigger. His black fur seemed to swallow the moonlight. When he spoke, his voice made the ground shake. "The circle will not be completed," he said. "The Alpha is coming. You cannot stop what's meant to be." I fired at him. The blessed bullet hit him in the chest and he actually staggered. But then he laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Still fighting, Kate? Even now?" He sniffed the air. "I can smell the wolf in you. So close to the surface, why resist?" Behind me, I heard more gunshots. Mike was firing at something in the trees. John was shouting prayers, trying to complete the circle. The moon was almost covered now. The forest was getting darker. That's when I felt it. Something ancient and hungry waking up under the burial grounds. The wolf inside me howled in response. My hands started changing without my permission. Claws pushed through my fingertips. Fur sprouted along my arms. The charm around my neck was so hot it was smoking. "Kate," John's voice cut through the chaos. "The circle! Complete your part!" I looked down at the silver chain in my hands, just 20 feet to go. Behind me, Sarah screamed again. Mike's gunshots were getting fewer, more desperate. Shadow stepped closer. "Join us willingly," he said. "Or watch your friends die and join us anyway." I made my choice. I ran. Not away from Shadow, but toward my spot in the circle. I heard him roar and chase after me. Felt his claws swipe at my back, tearing my jacket. I fell, rolled, and came up running. My legs were changing, making it hard to stay upright. But I kept going. "Now!" I heard John shout. I threw my piece of the silver chain just as Shadow tackled me. We hit the ground hard. His teeth went for my throat, but I got my arm up in time. Felt his fangs sink into my forearm instead. Then John finished his prayer. Light exploded from the silver circle. A wall of blue-white fire shot up from the ground, surrounding the burial grounds. Shadow howled, not in anger this time, but in fear, because something else was howling too. Something below us. The ground cracked open. Trees fell, and out of the earth came the Blood Alpha. I thought Shadow was big. The thing that rose from the burial grounds made him look like a puppy. It was like someone had taken a wolf and stretched it into something impossible. It had too many legs, too many eyes, and its fur looked like it was made of shadows that moved on their own. When it opened its mouth, I saw rows of teeth going all the way down its throat. "At last," it said, and its voice felt like it was coming from inside my head. "My pack is ready." The eclipse was complete. The moon went fully dark, and that's when the real fight began. The Blood Alpha's power hit me like a wave of burning ice. My charm shattered, and the wolf inside me howled to break free. But something strange happened. Instead of turning completely, I stayed caught between human and wolf, aware enough to think, but changed enough to fight. Around me, everything was chaos. Sarah had broken free from Nathan and was running for the circle's edge. Mike was down, but still human, crawling toward his dropped gun. John stood at the center of the burial grounds, holding up an ancient bone knife and chanting. The Blood Alpha towered over us all, its shadow fur moving like smoke. Every time it took a step, the ground cracked beneath its feet. "Your circle cannot hold me," it growled. "I have waited too long, gathered too much power." Shadow and his pack pressed against the wall of blue fire, trying to get in. The blessed silver was holding them back, but I could see it weakening. "Kate." John's voice cut through the noise. "The knife, it needs to be the knife." He threw something that glinted in the darkness. I caught it, the bone knife now glowing with symbols like the ones from the burial grounds. I understood then. The knife that trapped the Blood Alpha the first time. The only thing that could trap it again. But to use it, I'd have to get close. Really close. The Blood Alpha saw the knife in my hand and laughed. The sound made trees shake and rocks crack, little. "I've changed one," it said. "You think you can fight me? I am in your blood now, part of you." It was right. I could feel it pulling at me, trying to make me submit, join its pack, give in to the change completely. That's when I heard Lisa's voice, in my head remembering her last discovery. It doesn't just want to change people into wolves. wants to change everything. I looked at Sarah, still fighting even though her arm was bleeding. At Mike, refusing to give up. At John, who'd taught us how to fight monsters. I thought of Jake and Nathan and everyone else we'd lost. The wolf inside me growled, but this time it wasn't growling for the Blood Alpha. It was growling for my pack. My human pack. I ran straight at the monster. It swiped at me with claws bigger than my whole body. I dove under them, feeling the wind of their passing ruffle my fur. Yes, I had fur now. My body was changing faster the closer I got to the Blood Alpha. But I kept my mind, kept running. Fool, it roared. You cannot fight your true nature. Watch me, I growled back and jumped. The bone knife hit the Blood Alpha's chest just as its teeth snapped shut where my head had been. The blade sank deep, and the symbols on it burst into blinding light. The monster's scream shook the whole forest. Shadow and his pack howled in pain. The ground cracked wider, opening up beneath the Blood Alpha's feet. "John!" I shouted. "Now!" John's voice rose in the final words of the ritual. The silver circle erupted with power. Blue fire surrounded the Blood Alpha, trapping it, pulling it back down into the earth. "No!" it roared. "I will not be imprisoned again." It tried to fight, but the knife in its chest was burning brighter and brighter. Its shadow fur began to dissolve. Its extra eyes winked out one by one. As it fell, it made one last grab for me. Its claws caught my leg, trying to drag me down with it. That's when Sarah and Mike shot it with their last blessed bullets. The Blood Alpha's grip loosened just enough for me to pull free. The ground swallowed it whole. The blue fire flared one last time, then died. In the forest beyond the circle, Shadow and his pack were changing back. Some turned into regular wolves that ran away into the night. Others became human again, confused and scared, but alive. The eclipse ended. The moon began to shine again. It was over, but not without a cost. 5 rangers had died fighting the pack. 3 civilians had been lost before we could save them. And me? I never changed back completely. That was 3 months ago. The forest is quiet now, mostly. The regular wolves have returned to their normal territories. The rangers don't talk about what happened during the eclipse, but they all wear protection. Charms now, just in case. Sometimes on full moon nights I run through the forest on 4 legs instead of 2. My eyes still glow yellow in the dark. I can smell things no human should be able to smell. Hear things no human should be able to hear. But I'm still me. Still human enough to write this down. Still human enough to protect the forest and the people in it. John says I'm something new. Not quite human, not quite wolf, but maybe something better than both. A guardian who understands both worlds. I keep the bone knife in a blessed silver box in my cabin. The burial grounds are sealed again, stronger than before. But sometimes, on very quiet nights, I think I can hear something howling deep underground, waiting. So, I watch, I guard. I run with the regular wolves sometimes, teaching them to avoid that dark place in the forest. And I keep my silver bullets ready, because the moon will go dark again someday. And this time, I'll be ready. Story 3. I've been struck by lightning twice in my life. The first time taught me to respect storms. The second time taught me to fear them. My name is James Winston, but everyone calls me Thunder. I guess that's what happens when you spend 15 years chasing storms across Tornado Alley before becoming a park ranger. The lightning bolt scar that runs down my right arm like a frozen river probably helps with the nickname too. Now I work at Olympic National Park in Washington State, where the mountains meet the sky and the rain never seems to stop. Most rangers hate being assigned to Storm Peak region, but I love it here. Or at least I used to, before everything changed. Before I learned that some storms aren't natural. Before I discovered what really lives in those dark clouds above us. I should have known something was wrong when my old barometer started acting up. It was my grandfather's, a beautiful brass thing that had never failed me in 20 years of weather watching. But that morning, 5 days ago, its needle started spinning in circles like a broken compass. I should have taken it as a warning. Instead, I just tapped the glass and hung it back on my cabin wall. That was my first mistake. Part 1. Setting the scene. Day 1. The morning everything began, I was doing my usual rounds near Storm Peak. The air felt wrong. You know how the pressure drops before a big storm? This was different. It felt like the sky was holding its breath. I checked my phone's weather app. Clear skies predicted all week. But my bones knew better. When you've spent as much time with storms as I have, you develop a sixth sense for them. And everything in me was screaming that something big was coming. Around noon, I found the first weird thing. A patch of sand near Thunder Point had turned to glass. Now, lightning can do that. When it strikes sand, creates these things called fulgurites. But this was different. The glass was shaped like a handprint, bigger than any humans, with long, twisted fingers stretching out toward the forest. I took some pictures and radioed back to base. "Hey, Sarah, you seeing any lightning strikes on the monitors?" The radio crackled. "Negative, Thunder. Sky's been quiet as a mouse. Why?" "Just found something strange. I'll tell you about it when I get back." That's when I heard it. A sound that still haunts my dreams. Imagine the lowest thunder you've ever heard, but underneath it something like singing. A deep, hungry kind of singing that made my teeth vibrate. I looked up. The clouds were moving wrong. Not west to east like they should, but in a spiral, like water going down a drain. And they were moving fast. Too fast. My phone buzzed with alerts. First from the weather service, then from park headquarters. Multiple lightning strikes reported across the park. But there wasn't a storm cloud in sight. Just that strange spiral of clouds overhead. By evening, things got worse. The animals knew something was wrong before we did. Entire herds of elk charged past my cabin, heading down the mountain. Birds flew in tight, panicked circles. Even the insects went quiet. I was checking the weather radar in my office when Thompson, one of our junior rangers, burst in. His face was white as a sheet. "Thunder, you need to see this," he gasped. "The lightning, it's making patterns." I followed him outside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Lightning was striking in a perfect circle around Storm Peak. Strike after strike, like someone had drawn a ring of fire in the sky. But the weird part? The lightning was striking up, from the ground into the clouds. My old barometer chose that moment to explode, sending brass pieces flying across the room. As glass rained down on my desk, I heard that strange singing thunder again, and this time, something in the clouds answered back. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every weather instrument we had was going haywire. The temperature dropped 30 degrees, then shot up 50, then dropped again. Wind speeds read off the charts, but outside my window, not a single leaf moved. Just before dawn, I found another glass handprint. This one was on my cabin wall, pressed into the wood like it had melted right through. And it was still warm. That's when I knew whatever was coming wasn't just a storm. It was hunting. And somehow I knew it was hunting for me. Morning came with a weird gray light that made everything look like an old photograph. I'd been up all night drinking coffee and watching the sky. The weather team from Seattle was supposed to arrive at 8 a.m. They showed up at 6:30 instead, their van kicking up dust as it raced into the ranger station parking lot. We saw the lightning patterns on our way up, Dr. Lisa Chen said as she jumped out of the van. She looked like a normal mom in her hiking boots and rain jacket, except for the excited spark in her eyes. Upward striking lightning in a perfect circle? That's impossible. We had to come early. Her team quickly set up their equipment on the grass outside my cabin. There were 5 of them. Lisa, who studied weird weather patterns. Mike, the lightning expert. Jenny and Rob, who worked with all the fancy measuring tools. And Dave, who handled their computers. "Your cabin wall," Mike whispered, running his fingers over the glass handprint. "The wood isn't burned around it. That's not how lightning works. Lightning burns things." I nodded. "Nothing's working the way it should up here." They spread out their equipment, weather balloons, lightning detectors, and something that looked like a satellite dish made of copper. My old broken barometer caught Lisa's eye. "May I?" she asked, picking up one of the pieces. The needle was still spinning, even though it wasn't connected to anything anymore. "I've never seen..." Thunder rolled overhead, but the sky was clear. We all looked up at the same time. That's when we saw it, just for a second, like a shadow passing behind a frosted window. Something huge moved across the clouds. Lightning flickered between what looked like antlers or maybe tree branches. The air smelled like a thunderstorm, but also like something else. Something old. "Tell me everyone else saw that," Jenny whispered. We all nodded. Rob checked his instruments. "Temperature just dropped 15 degrees in 10 seconds. That's not..." Crack! The lightning came out of nowhere. 1 minute, Rob and Mike were standing by their copper dish thing. The next, they were on the ground. The lightning had struck straight down from a clear sky. I've seen lightning strikes before. They're quick. One flash and done. But this one stayed, like a glowing rope, between sky and ground. And for just a moment, I swear I saw something sliding down it, like a spider on a web. We got Rob and Mike inside. They were breathing, but their hair was standing straight up, and both of them kept mumbling about eyes in the storm, while Lisa and Dave helped them. Jenny and I went back outside to check the equipment. That's when we saw the symbols. They were drawn in the dirt all around the cabin, but they hadn't been made by anything on the ground. They were being burned into the earth by tiny lightning bolts falling from the sky, like someone writing with electricity. Jenny took pictures while I copied the symbols in my notebook. They looked almost like letters, but not from any language I knew. They seemed to move when you looked at them directly, like they were trying to crawl off the page. "The computers are picking up a pattern," Dave called from inside. "The lightning strikes. They're not random. They're forming some kind of..." The radio cut him off, crackling to life with static that sounded almost like words. Through the noise, I heard Sarah from park headquarters. "Thunder. Something's... The weather radar. It's showing. Coming. Your way." The static got louder, and under it was that singing sound again. But this time, it was closer. Much closer. That's when the temperature dropped so fast our breath turned to ice crystals in the air. The clouds above started spinning like a whirlpool in the sky, and in the center of that whirlpool, 2 lights appeared. They looked like ball lightning, but ball lightning doesn't look back at you. Ball lightning doesn't blink. "Everyone inside," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now." We ran for the cabin. Behind us, I heard something huge taking shape in the sky. Something that moved like a storm, but wasn't a storm. The last thing I saw before I slammed the cabin door was a giant clawed hand made of dark clouds reaching down from the sky. We all stood there in the dark cabin, listening to that thunder song getting closer and closer. The walls creaked like something was pressing against them. Through the window, shadows moved across the glass, leaving trails of frost in strange, twisting patterns. "What is it?" Jenny whispered. I looked at my notebook where I'd copied those lightning symbols. Now I could read them, though I didn't know how. They spelled one word over and over: hungry. "I don't think it's a what," I said, watching frost crawl across the ceiling. "I think it's a who, and I think it knows we're here." None of us slept that night. Rob and Mike were still pretty shaken from the lightning strike, so Lisa gave them some aspirin and let them rest on my couch. The rest of us took turns watching through the windows, though honestly, I'm not sure what we were watching for. When morning came, everything was covered in frost. Not normal frost. This stuff made pictures. Everywhere it spread, it formed the same symbols we'd seen in the lightning, and it was spreading fast. "The weather's all wrong," Dave said, checking his laptop. "Look at this." He showed us a weather map of the park. Normal weather maps have all kinds of colors showing different things: rain, snow, temperature. This one was just a big black spiral over Storm Peak, like a hurricane that wasn't moving. Jenny squinted at the screen. "Those cloud patterns? I've seen them before in some really old weather books." She pulled out her phone and showed us a picture of an ancient drawing. It showed Native American hunters running from a cloud shaped like a deer with lightning between its antlers. "They called it the Storm Eater," she said. "A spirit that lived in the mountains and ate lightning. They said it would come down during the worst storms to hunt." A loud boom shook the cabin, making us all jump. Outside, the sky had turned a weird greenish-black color, like a bruise. "We need to call for help," Lisa said, reaching for the radio. But when she turned it on, all we heard was that strange singing sound, louder than ever. Then we saw them, shapes in the clouds, moving like they were alive. The clouds twisted and turned until they formed something huge, something with a head like a deer, but a body made of storm clouds. Lightning jumped between its antlers, and its eyes. Its eyes were like tiny blue suns. We all stood there, frozen, watching it take shape. It was beautiful in a scary way, like watching a tornado up close. "Nobody move," I whispered. But right then, Rob woke up from the couch and saw it through the window. He screamed. The thing's head snapped toward us, those lightning eyes fixed right on our cabin. "Run," I yelled. "Basement now." We barely made it. The creature reached down with cloud hands that looked almost solid, ripping the roof off my cabin like it was opening a cereal box. Rain poured. But it wasn't normal rain. Each drop glowed like it had lightning inside it. From the basement, we heard it moving above us. Its footsteps sounded like thunder. Through the basement's small window, I could see its legs. They looked like dark storm clouds, but moved like they were made of muscle. "What do we do?" Mike asked. He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. Before I could answer, something strange happened. The glowing rain started forming patterns on the basement floor. But these weren't the hungry symbols from before. These were different. "They're weather patterns," Lisa whispered, her eyes wide. "Really, old ones from hundreds of years ago." She was right. I recognized some of them from my storm-chasing days. But these were storms that couldn't happen naturally. Storms that twisted backward. Storms that moved in impossible ways. That's when I understood. This thing, this storm, Eater, wasn't just making storms. It was reading them. Like books. Like memories. Suddenly, 3 things happened at once. The basement window exploded inward. A cloud arm reached through, made of swirling dark mist. Lisa, Rob, and Mike vanished into. It like they'd been erased. It happened so fast we couldn't even scream. 1 second they were there, the next, gone. The cloud arm pulled back, taking them with it. "No!" Jenny tried to grab Lisa's hand, but she was already gone. The thing above us made a sound like laughing thunder. Dave, Jenny, and I huddled in the corner, watching as more glowing rain fell through the hole in the ceiling. It was writing something new. More. I looked at the weather patterns on the floor again, and suddenly I knew why they looked familiar. They weren't just old storms. They were storms I'd chased, storms I'd studied. Somehow this thing was reading my memories through the weather itself. "It's not just hunting us," I said, my voice shaking. "It's learning from us." Above us, the storm eater roared, a sound like 1,000 thunderclaps at once. The whole basement shook. "What do we do?" Dave asked. "What do we do?" I looked at my lightning scar, then at the storm's patterns on the floor. An idea started forming. A crazy, terrible idea. "We need to get to the weather station on top of Storm Peak," I said. "I think I know what it wants, and I think I know how to stop it." But looking up through the hole in the basement ceiling, seeing that massive creature made of clouds and lightning, hearing its thunder laugh, I wasn't sure we'd survive long enough to try. We waited in the basement until sunrise, though it was hard to tell when that was. The sky stayed dark, like an endless storm was sitting on top of us. Dave, Jenny, and I were all that was left of our group. "We have to move," I whispered. "The weather station is 5 miles up the mountain." "But that thing is out there," Jenny said, hugging herself to keep warm. "I know, but I think I figured something out." I pointed to the glowing rain patterns on the floor. "See how it's reading old storms? Maybe that's why it took the others. It's learning about our weather science. And the biggest collection of weather data is up at that station." Dave nodded slowly. "So if we can get there first, maybe we can use that knowledge against it," I finished. We packed what we could from the ruined cabin. Flashlights, rope, Dave's laptop, and my broken barometer pieces. Even broken, the needle kept pointing toward Storm Peak, like it knew. Something we didn't. Outside, the world looked wrong. The clouds hung so low we could almost touch them. They moved in strange ways, like they were alive, which I guess they were now. Lightning flashed inside them constantly, making it look like the sky was full of blue veins. We stuck to the trees, trying to stay hidden. I'd hiked this trail 100 times, but it felt different now. Every crack of a branch made us freeze. Every rumble of thunder sent us diving for cover. About halfway up the mountain, we found the research station's van. It was crushed flat, like something huge had stepped on it. Inside, through the broken windows, all the equipment was melted into weird shapes. Look, Jenny pointed at the ground. There were more symbols burned into the dirt around the van, but these were different. They looked older, more complicated. They're changing, Dave said, taking pictures with his phone. Like the thing is learning to write better. That's when we heard it, that singing thunder coming from right behind us. We turned around slowly. The storm eater stood there, its cloud body touching the ground and the sky at the same time. Up close I could see patterns moving in its clouds. Tornadoes, hurricanes, storms from all over the world swirling inside it. Its lightning eyes fixed on us, and in them I saw more than just hunger now. I saw curiosity. It reached for us with, "Cloud hand as big as my cabin. Run!" I shouted. We scattered in different directions. I ran straight up the mountain, hoping to lead it away from the others. Behind me, I heard it moving, not walking, but flowing over the ground like a living fog. The air turned electric. The hair on my arms stood up. Crack, lightning struck right in front of me, then behind me, then both sides. It was boxing me in. I dove under a fallen tree just as another lightning bolt hit where I'd been standing. Through a gap in the trunk, I saw Dave running toward a cave. The storm eater saw him too. "Hey!" I jumped up, waving my arms. "Remember, me? I'm the one who chased your cousins. All those storms across Tornado Alley." Its head turned toward me. In its cloud body, I saw one of my old storms form. A tornado I'd chased in Kansas 10 years ago. But while it was distracted, Jenny appeared behind it. She was carrying a long branch with copper wiring from the van wrapped around it, holding. It looked like a lightning rod. The storm eater spun around. Jenny threw the branch as hard as she could. Lightning shot from the creature's antlers, hitting the copper. For a second, the whole branch glowed blue. Then it exploded. The blast threw Jenny. Backward. The storm eater roared, not in pain, but in what sounded like delight. It flowed toward her like a river of clouds. "No." Dave ran from his cave, grabbing Jenny's arm, trying to pull her up. The creature's cloud hand wrapped around them both. I watched in horror as they were pulled up into its body, disappearing into the swirling storms inside it. "Stop!" I screamed. "Take me instead." The storm eater turned to me, its lightning eyes blazing. Storms inside its body spun faster. In its clouds, I saw every storm I'd ever chased, every weather pattern I'd ever studied. It had taken them right out of my memories. That's when I finally understood what it really wanted. Not just lightning, not just storms, but knowledge. It wanted to learn about our storms, our weather, our science. And it was using people to do it. I ran. Ran harder than I've ever run in my life, straight up toward the weather station. The creature followed, its massive cloud body rolling up the mountain like an avalanche made of storms. My legs burned. My lungs felt like they were on fire. But I could see the weather station ahead, its tall towers reaching into the dark, sky covered in sensors and equipment. Behind me, the storm eater's thunder song grew louder, but now I could almost understand it. It wasn't just singing, it was asking questions. I reached the station's door just as the first cloud hands reached for me. Inside was everything we knew about weather, decades of research and data, and I had a terrible feeling that once the storm eater learned it all, it would never stop hunting. Lightning flashed. The station's metal walls hummed with electricity, and I realized I only had seconds to make a choice that would either save everyone or doom us all. I slammed the weather station door behind me and looked around frantically. Computers lined. The walls, filled with years of weather data. Lightning rods pointed up from the roof like metal fingers reaching for the sky. The whole building shook as the storm meter pressed against it. Through the windows, I could see its massive cloud body surrounding us. Lightning flashed between its antlers, lighting up the room like a broken camera flash. That's when I saw them, shapes moving in the creature's clouds. People shapes. Lisa, Rob, Mike, Jenny, and Dave, floating in the storms inside its body. They were alive, but looked like they were sleeping. The storm eater's cloud face pressed against the big window. Its lightning eyes stared right at me. In them I saw storms from all over the world. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards. It had collected them like kids collect trading cards. My broken barometer needle spun wildly in my pocket. And suddenly, I knew what I had to do. Working fast, I grabbed all the copper wire I could find. I remembered something Mike had said before the creature took him. Lightning wants to go up. I started connecting wires to the lightning rods on the roof, running them down through the building. Every weather station has lightning rods to protect it from strikes. This one had 8 of them. The creature's thunder song got louder. The window started to crack. My hands shook as I worked, connecting more wires. I could feel the storm eater's curiosity. It wanted to know what I was doing. Crash. The window shattered. Cold wind and rain whipped through the station. Papers flew everywhere. The storm eater's cloud hand reached in, moving straight for the computers. "Wait!" I shouted. "You want to learn about storms? I'll teach you." The hand stopped. Those lightning eyes focused on me. "But first," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "let my friends go." The creature's head tilted, like it was thinking. Then, slowly, shapes started falling from its cloud body. My friends dropped gently to the floor, coughing and confused, but alive. "Thunder?" Lisa looked up at me. "What's happening?" "Get behind the computers," I told them. "Don't touch any metal." The storm eater filled the broken window now, its massive head taking up the whole space. Inside its body, I could see new storms forming. Combinations of storms that shouldn't exist. It was learning, creating, growing stronger. I took out my broken barometer and held it up. The needle pointed straight at the creature's heart, where the storm spun the fastest. "You want to know our storms?" I said. "Here's the biggest lesson. Lightning always follows the path it wants to take." I threw the barometer as hard as I could. The storm eater's cloud hand caught it easily. But that's exactly what I wanted, because the barometer wasn't just broken. It was full of brass and copper pieces, metal pieces, connected to my wire network, connected to every lightning rod on the roof, and lightning always wants to go up. The creature must have realized what was happening a second too late. It tried to pull back, but the barometer was already deep in its cloud body. I grabbed the main power switch and yelled, "Everyone down!" Then I pulled it. Electricity surged through all the wires at once. 8 lightning rods shot energy straight into the sky, right through the storm eater's body. The creature's roar shook the mountain. Lightning exploded from its antlers, its eyes, its whole body. But this time the lightning wasn't going where it wanted. The rods were pulling it up, like 8 electric straws sucking up a milkshake. The storm eater's cloud body started breaking apart. Wind howled through the station. Rain fell upward. The creature tried to stay together. But physics is physics. Lightning has to follow the path it wants to take. With a sound like the sky ripping in half, the storm eater was torn apart. Its clouds scattered. Its lightning eyes blinked out. That strange thunder song faded away. Then everything went quiet. We all stood there in the broken weather station, hardly daring to breathe. Outside, normal rain started falling. Normal clouds drifted by. "Is it gone?" Jenny whispered. I looked at my lightning scar, which was glowing faintly blue. "No," I said. "It's not gone. But it learned its last lesson about storms." "Which is?" Rob asked. "Even the biggest storm has to end sometime." Epilogue. They fixed up the weather station, but I don't work there anymore. Can't stand being around all that equipment now. My weather sense got stronger after that day. I can feel storms coming. Hours before they hit, feel the lightning in my bones. The others went back to their normal lives, though we stay in touch. Sometimes they send me pictures of weird clouds, asking if I think it's back. I tell them no, but I keep watching the sky. My new barometer works fine, but I keep the broken pieces of the old one. On stormy nights, the needle still spins, pointing toward Storm Peak. And sometimes, when the clouds are just right, I swear I hear a faint song in the thunder. I think it's still out there, watching, learning, but now it knows what we can do, what I can do. So these days, I chase storms again. Not to study them, but to make sure nothing's hiding in them. Nothing with lightning eyes and storm cloud hands, because the Storm Eater learned about our weather. But I learned something too. Sometimes the scariest storms are the ones that can think. Next story. The howl that woke me wasn't like anything I'd heard in my 15 years as a park ranger. It made my skin crawl and my heart stop for a second. Something was wrong in my forest. Very wrong. I'm Victoria Rodriguez, but everyone calls me Vicky. At 41, I thought I'd seen everything Olympic National Park could throw at me. I'd tracked mountain lions, rescued lost hikers, and even survived a close call with a mother bear. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened during those awful full moon nights of 1988. It all started with the wolves. They'd always been my friends. I used to photograph them back when I worked for National Geographic. I knew every pack in the park, could recognize their individual howls. But that spring, they changed. The whole forest felt different, like something dark had settled over it, like a heavy blanket. My nightmares didn't help. Ever since that terrible accident last year, the one that still makes my hands shake when I think about it, I'd been having these dreams that felt more like warnings. In them, I'd see shadows moving between the trees, hear screams that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I'd wake up covered in sweat, my heart pounding like it wanted to break free from my chest. Then the reports started coming in. Ranger Rodriguez? Sarah, one of our dispatch operators, called me one morning. We've got another report of dead cattle up at the Mason's farm. Third one this month. They're saying it's different this time. I drove up there in my patrol truck, the morning fog still clinging to the ground like ghost fingers. Bill Mason, tough old rancher who'd seen his share of predator attacks, was waiting for me. His face was pale. "Look at this, Vicky," he said, leading me to his barn. "Ain't no normal wolf did this." The cow lay there, torn apart in ways that made my stomach turn. But it wasn't just the violence that bothered me. It was the precision. Whatever did this wasn't just killing for food. It was playing. That same week, people started calling about their missing pets. First, it was the Johnsons' German Shepherd. Then the Millers' 3 cats. Mrs. Peterson's prize-winning border collie vanished right from her fenced backyard. But it was Jimmy, our night security guard, who saw it first. He came running into the ranger station one night, shaking like a leaf. "I saw something," he stammered, clutching his coffee mug so tight I thought it might break. "By the old oak grove. It was standing there, Vicky. Standing on 2 legs. Had to be 12 feet tall, then it just melted into shadows." I didn't want to believe him. Maybe it was the fog playing tricks, I told myself. Maybe all of this had a logical explanation. But deep down, in that part of me that still remembered how to be afraid of the dark, I knew better. The wolves knew it too. Their howls changed from their usual songs to something more desperate, warning calls. They were trying to tell us something. Every full moon they'd gather on the ridges around the park, howling into the night like they were begging for help. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. The strange tracks that appeared and disappeared. The way the air would suddenly turn cold in certain parts of the forest, even on warm days. The shadows I'd catch moving in my peripheral vision, always just out of sight. "You're working too hard," my fellow rangers would say. "Taking too many night shifts. Still dealing with what happened last year." Maybe they were right. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. But then came the night of the first full moon of summer, and everything changed. That was the night we found the first bodies, and all my worst nightmares started coming true. Looking back now, I wish I'd paid more attention to the signs. Wish I'd connected the dots sooner. because by the time we figured out what we were really dealing with, it was already too late. The Moonlight Massacre had begun, and nothing in my training had prepared me for what was coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you exactly how it all went down. Every terrible detail. Because someone needs to know the truth about what happened in Olympic National Park during those blood-soaked summer months of 1988. Someone needs to know what's still out there, waiting in the shadows, watching with hungry eyes for the next full moon to rise. The call came at 5:30 a.m., just as the sun was starting to peek through the trees. Sarah's voice was shaking on the radio. "Vicky, you need to get to Cedar Creek Campground. Now." I knew from her tone that this was bad. Really bad. As I drove through the morning mist, my hands tight on the steering wheel, I tried to prepare myself for what I might find. But nothing. Not 15 years of ranger experience, not all my time photographing predators in the wild, could have prepared me for what I saw. The campsite looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Tents were ripped to shreds. Camping gear was scattered everywhere, and the ground. There was so much blood on the ground. "Family of 4, Officer Mike Thompson told me when I arrived. He'd been first on the scene and looked like he might be sick. The Hendersons. They were here for their annual camping trip. I walked the scene slowly, my camera hanging heavy around my neck. Something felt wrong about the tracks I was finding. They started as wolf prints, big ones, but then they changed. Some looked almost human, but massive, bigger than any footprint I'd ever seen, and they were fresh. I took pictures of everything, my hands shaking slightly as I clicked the shutter. Click. A deep set of claw marks in a tree, about 8 feet up. Click. A strange pattern of blood spatter that didn't make sense for any animal. Attack I knew. Click. Those impossible footprints leading into the dense forest. "What do you make of it?" Mike asked, standing beside me. I shook my head. "I don't know, but whatever did this, it's not like anything we've dealt with before." That night I stayed late at the ranger station going through old files. My eyes were burning from staring at the computer screen, but I couldn't stop. Something about this felt familiar, like an old story I'd heard once but couldn't quite remember. Then it happened. The lights went out all at once. Not just the power. Every light, including my flashlight and phone. The darkness was complete, absolute. And in that darkness I heard something breathing. Heavy, wet breaths, like a huge animal trying to be quiet. It was inside the station with me. I moved slowly, carefully, trying to remember where I'd left my gun. The breathing got closer. A smell hit me, like wet dog and something rotting. My hand found the grip of my gun, and I pulled it out just as something huge moved in the darkness. The emergency lights kicked in, filling the room with dim red light. For just a second, one terrible, awful second, I saw it. A massive shape, too tall for the ceiling, bent over like a wolf trying to stand like a man. Its eyes caught the red light and glowed like burning coals. Then it was gone, leaving behind only deep claw marks in my desk and the overwhelming smell of death. The next morning, we found Jenny and Marcus, 2 of our junior rangers. They'd been doing their night patrol. What was left of them was spread across half a mile of trail. I went home that night and dug through my old research materials. Something about those claw marks, about the way it moved. It reminded me of stories I'd heard during my photography days. Stories told by Native American guides about creatures that walked the line between wolf and man. That's when I found it, an old journal from the 1800s, written by a settler named Thomas Crawford. He wrote about wolfmen that walk in shadow, and how the local tribes had warned them about those who hunt under the moon. The journal mentioned ancient tribal warnings carved into rocks deep in the forest. I knew I had to find those warnings, but as I sat there reading by lamplight, a wolf howled somewhere in the darkness outside my window. It wasn't a normal howl. It was filled with pain, like something was forcing it to make that sound. And then, very faintly, I heard something howl back, something that sounded almost human. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Everything I thought I knew about my forest, about the creatures that lived in it, was changing. And somehow, I knew this was just the beginning. The next day, I started preparing. I got maps of the old tribal lands, packed extra ammunition, and made sure my camera was ready. If I was going to find those ancient warnings, I needed to be ready. For anything. But deep down, I had a terrible feeling that I was already too late. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just hunting anymore. It was playing with us, and soon it would be back for more. The attacks got worse after that night at the ranger station. Much worse. It wasn't just random anymore. The creature had a plan. Every 3 days, like clockwork, we'd find something horrible. Sometimes it was livestock, sometimes it was people. The worst part was the wolves. They weren't acting like themselves anymore. Their eyes looked empty, like something else was controlling them. My partner Jack had been with me through everything. 20 years as a ranger, tough as nails, and the only person who truly believed what I was saying about the creature. We'd been friends for years, watched each other's backs through every kind of danger the park could throw at us. "We need to stop this thing, Vicky," he said one evening as we sat in our patrol car watching the sunset, "before it kills anyone else." I nodded, but my stomach felt like it was full of ice. The old tribal warnings I'd found talked about something called the Shadow Walker, a creature that could control other animals and create copies of itself from darkness. The drawings showed it standing tall like a man but shaped like a wolf, with eyes that could trap your soul. That night we got a call about 3 hunters who hadn't come back from their trip. Jack and I went to look for them, even though everything in me was screaming that it was a trap. We found their camp just as the moon was rising. Their tent was still standing, but there was blood everywhere. We followed the trail into a clearing, and that's when everything went wrong. The wolves came first, at least 30 of them, their eyes glowing with an unnatural red light. They surrounded us, moving in ways wolves never should. Their howls didn't sound like wolf calls anymore. They sounded like screaming. "Jack," I whispered, "we need to..." But when I turned to look at him, I knew something was wrong. He was standing perfectly still, staring at the moon, and his eyes were starting to glow just like the wolves. "Jack?" He turned to look at me, but it wasn't Jack anymore. His face was twisted into something horrible, a grin that was too wide, too full of teeth. When he spoke, his voice was mixed with something deeper, something that sounded like growling. "He's mine now, Victoria," Jack said, but it wasn't really him speaking. "They're all mine." Everything happened so fast after that. Jack, or whatever, was controlling him. Came at me with inhuman speed. I had to run, ducking between trees as the controlled wolves chased me. I could hear Jack behind me, laughing in that terrible mixed voice. I ended up cornered against an old silver mine entrance. Jack was getting closer, moving like a puppet on strings, his body twitching in ways that made my skin crawl. The wolves were closing in too, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. That's when I noticed something strange. Jack was avoiding the old silver mine cart that lay rusted near the entrance. Every time he got near it, he'd twitch away like it burned him, the silver. The old stories always mentioned silver. I had my grandmother's silver locket in my pocket, a gift I always carried for luck. Without thinking, I pulled it out and threw it at Jack. The reaction was instant. Where the silver touched his skin, black smoke rose up. He screamed, but it wasn't Jack's scream anymore. It was the creature's scream, echoing through Jack's body. What happened next still haunts my nightmares. The thing controlling Jack tried to force him forward, but the silver was weakening its hold. For just a moment, I saw the real Jack in his eyes again. "Vicky," he gasped, fighting against the creature's control. "Do it, please." I had my gun loaded with regular bullets. Jack was my best friend, my partner, the person I trusted most in the world. And now I had to... I fired. The sound echoed through the forest. Jack's body fell, and something dark and horrible poured out of him like smoke, disappearing into the shadows. The wolves dropped to the ground like puppets with cut strings, then got up looking confused and scared. I held Jack as he died. His last words were clear, his voice his own again. "Now you know how to fight it, Vicky. Don't let it win. I buried him the next day, using his silver police badge as a marker for his grave. That night, I melted down every piece of silver I owned and made bullets. The creature had taken my best friend, controlled the wolves I loved, and terrorized my forest. But now I knew its weakness. Now I could fight back, and I was going to make sure Jack's death meant something. The full moon was coming in 3 days. The creature would be at its strongest then, but I would be ready. I had my silver bullets, my knowledge from the tribal, warnings and a fury in my heart that burned hotter than any fear. The hunt was on, but this time, I was the hunter. The night of the lunar eclipse came too quickly. I'd spent 3 days preparing, making silver bullets, studying the tribal warnings, and trying to figure out where the creature would strike next. The old writing said that during an eclipse, the Shadow Walker would be at its most powerful, but also its most vulnerable. I was loading my gun with silver bullets when the first emergency call came in. 4 hikers missing near Thunder Ridge. Sarah's voice crackled over the radio. And Vicky, they found tracks, the big ones. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my gear, but my mind was clear. I knew this was it, the final fight. Before leaving, I touched Jack's badge one last time. "I'm going to end this, partner," I whispered. The moon was already starting to darken when I reached Thunder Ridge. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no insects, not even wind in the trees. Just silence and the smell of wet fur and decay. That's when I heard the screaming. I ran toward the sound, my silver-loaded gun ready. In a clearing ahead, I could see them. 4 hikers trapped against a cliff wall, surrounded by what looked like living shadows. And there, standing 12 feet tall in the moonlight, was the creature itself. It was worse than anything I'd imagined. Like a wolf had been stretched out and forced to stand like a man, with fur that seemed to swallow light. Its eyes were burning red, and when it saw me, it smiled, a horrible, too human expression on that wolf face. "The ranger returns," it spoke. Its voice like gravel and thunder mixed together. "Come to join your friend?" Shadow copies of itself started peeling away from its body, each one as horrible as the original. The hikers were crying, huddled together as the shadows crept closer. "Let them go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is between you and me." The creature laughed, and all its shadows laughed with it. "You humans, always trying to be brave. Your friend Jack was brave too, wasn't he? Should I show you what his last thoughts felt like?" The moon was getting darker as the eclipse began. The creature seemed to grow larger, its shadows spreading out like ink in water. With a howl that shook the trees, it called its controlled wolves. Dozens of them, their eyes glowing red just like that night with Jack. Everything happened at once. The shadows attacked from all sides while the real creature lunged for the hikers. I fired my silver bullets at the shadows, watching them dissolve with screams of smoke. The wolves came at me, but I could tell they were fighting the creature's control. Their movements were jerky, resisting. "Run!" I shouted to the hikers, giving them a chance to escape while I kept shooting. But I was running out of silver bullets, and the creature was still coming. That's when something impossible happened. As the moon went completely dark during the peak of the eclipse, I felt a familiar presence beside me. It wasn't physical, more like a warm feeling, a sense of someone having my back. Jack. I could almost hear his voice. "The tribal warnings, Vicky. Remember the tribal warnings." The warnings had mentioned a chant, words of power that could weaken the creature during an eclipse. With Jack's presence giving me strength, I started reciting the words I'd memorized, my voice getting louder with each phrase. The creature screamed, a sound of pure rage and pain. Its shadows started dissolving and the wolves broke free of its control, turning to face their former master with angry snarls. "You cannot stop what I am," it roared. But I could. See the fear in those red eyes now? I had 3 silver bullets left. The creature was weakening, but it wasn't enough. That's when I felt Jack's presence more strongly than ever, and somehow I knew what to do. I threw Jack's silver badge at the creature's feet and fired my last 3 bullets at it. The silver bullets hit the badge, causing a flash of light that lit up the whole clearing. The creature howled one last time, a sound of defeat and fury, before its body started breaking apart like smoke in the wind. But at the last moment, just before it completely dissolved, its largest piece slipped away into the shadows of the forest, leaving behind only a lingering growl of promise. This isn't over, Ranger. As the eclipse ended and moonlight returned, I found myself surrounded by wolves, but now they were normal again, their eyes clear and natural. They looked at me with what seemed like gratitude before disappearing into the forest, where the creature had been destroyed. The ground had collapsed, revealing an ancient burial site. The tribal warnings had been right. This place was sacred ground, meant to keep the creature trapped. Now I understood why it had chosen this territory. The 4 hikers were safe, though they'd never be the same after what they'd seen. Neither would I. As I stood there in the clearing, I could still feel Jack's presence fading away, like a warm breeze carrying the words, "Good job, partner," into the night. The forest felt different now, cleaner somehow, like a fever had broken. But I knew the alpha creature was still out there somewhere, waiting, healing, and somehow I could feel it, just like I could now feel other dark things that might be hiding in my forest. The wolves knew it too. They'd become my allies now, warning me when something wasn't right in their territory. The last thing I'd ever expected was to be able to understand them, but after that night, their howls were as clear to me as human words. The Moonlight Massacre was over, but something told me this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. It's been 6 months since that night of the lunar eclipse. Things are different now. I'm different. The forest is too. Every morning I wake up and touch Jack's spare badge that I keep on my bedside table. Some days I can almost feel him watching, over the park with me. The official report says he died protecting hikers from a wolf attack. Only I know the truth, and I'll carry that with me forever. The changes started small. At first I thought I was imagining things, the way I could sense when something wasn't right in my forest, like a cold spot in my mind. Then came the wolf dreams. Not nightmares like before, but real connections. I'd see through their eyes, feel what they felt, understand their warnings. The wolves don't run from me anymore. Sometimes they walk beside me on my patrols like loyal guards. The locals have started calling this area Wolf Haven because the packs have grown so comfortable here. Little do they know that these wolves are the best early warning system we could have against things that lurk in the dark. Yesterday, a young wolf I named Shadow because he follows me everywhere started acting strange near the old silver mine. That familiar cold feeling crept into my mind, and I knew something evil was nearby. The wolves gathered, 13 of them, and we patrolled the area together until the feeling passed. They trust me now, and I trust them. I've turned part of the park into an official wolf sanctuary. It feels right, protecting them like they protect us. The pack that was under the creature's control has made this their permanent home. Sometimes, when the moon is full, they gather near Jack's grave and howl, not in sadness, but like they're standing guard. The nightmares about Jack's death have faded, replaced by a different kind of dream. I see threats before they appear now, like pictures in my mind. Last week I dreamed about tracks near Eagle Point. The next day, we found signs that something big had passed through. The wolves were already there, watching, waiting. Every month when the moon is full, I hear howls in the distance that don't sound quite natural. The alpha creature is still out there, healing, waiting. But it's afraid now. Afraid of the silver, afraid of the wolves, and afraid of me. I keep Jack's badge close, my silver bullets ready, and my senses alert. Some nights, sitting on my porch with Shadow beside me, I write in my journal about everything that happened. The whole truth, every detail, because someone needs to know. Someone needs to be ready if the creature ever returns at full strength. The locals whisper about me now. They've noticed how the wolves follow me, how I always seem to know when danger is coming. Some leave silver charms on my doorstep. Protection offerings, they say. Others ask me to check their property when they feel something's not right. I do what I can to help, to protect them without revealing too much. The tribal elders invited me to a ceremony last week. They know what really happened, even though we've never talked about it directly. They gave me a silver necklace with ancient symbols carved into it and welcomed me as a guardian of the forest. The wolves chose you, the eldest said. Now you walk in both worlds. Looking out my window now, I can see Shadow and his pack patrolling the tree line. The moon is rising, nearly full, and somewhere out there, in the darkest parts of the forest, something is watching, waiting. But I'm not afraid anymore. My name is Victoria Rodriguez, and I guard Olympic National Park. I protect the wolves, and they protect us. And if that creature ever comes back, we'll be ready, because some battles don't end with a single victory. Some battles are passed down, guardian to guardian, under the light of the moon. And I'll be here, watching, protecting, remembering. For Jack, for the wolves, for all of us. The end.